Busy.
All right. You wanna cue me up, or you just want me to start monologuing?
Well, I mean, today's topic is vision. I mean, I think this is one of the areas that you're very gifted in. You're great at vision casting and expressing, what you believe the future is going to look like, and you offer a very compelling pitch, if you will. And I think people are very motivated on again, just how you look at the business. So just kind of walk through how you think through vision casting, and I'm hoping people can grab some takeaways on how they can best vision cast in their businesses.
Word. All right. Well, let's jump into it then. Cool. So I'll create some frames. I'll speak here maybe for 15 minutes, and then maybe we can use the rest of the time for Q&A. But it's, I'm in an interesting season and an exciting season, but I accomplished a goal I set out to accomplish about 10 years ago. And so I'm in the middle of a big reset and recalibrating a lot of things, so some of this stuff is like fresh in my mind right now. And I'm also looking at and one of the questions I was asking myself is to look back, how could I have done what I did in 10 years in 5 years? And then from there I went, well, how could I have done what I've done in 5 years in a year? More as a mental exercise to kind of understand what goes into it. But that has led me to some pretty interesting concepts that I'm excited to roll out here in the next 10 years. It kind of how I'm updating my vision going forward and what I'm about, and the things that I've learned, right? There was a lot of, in introspection and kind of looking back, there was a lot of things that I didn't do very well. And we're also a reminder, and as I talk to lots of high performers and successful people, they all say that. It's like, well, you don't really necessarily have to be good at everything. You just have to be really good at what you're really good at. And that now makes a lot more sense to me looking back. I'm like, fuck, there's some truth to that. But I think, the business, and I say this all the time, so I won't spend a whole lot of time here, but the business from just a pure math standpoint has never been better than it is right now. And, as a senior national consultant, I don't have to run an office anymore, right? So that was part of my math. It was like, okay, do I just stop running an office? And do I just work on supporting the organization? And to be fair, I haven't really ran an office, at least not my style of office, for like 3 years. And as I now looking back at it, I would describe it this way. I basically made the same mistake as a consultant that a rookie owner makes when they open up and stop promoting out first gens, right? Or stop hiring first gen deals. Now, it may have made it seem like a mistake because I promoted out 18, and I think I still have almost double the next consultant in line for first gen deals as it stands, or something very close to that. So maybe that's not as obvious, but that's also my wheelhouse. I'm really good at that. And I stopped doing it to try to pass the baton on, which I'm now seeing in a gap of 3 years, how much pain that has brought my organization and how much pain that has brought my business overall. And part of that is I'm good at that. Now, I realize not everybody is good at promoting out deals, and maybe there's another way to go about that, but it is something I'm very good at. And I look back with a certain amount of regret for ever slowing that down or convincing myself it was better to pass that baton on. So that's something that now when I look forward, I've got a lot of updates to my game and things that I'm seeing, and I'm excited to promote out more deals. However, I am going to change how I do it just based on the season I'm in. But the math for me is pretty simple. The business has never been better than it is. We had Vera speak at our Top Gun last month, and she gave us the updated stats, which were talked about on the consultant call, and I'm certain will be brought up at Keys. But the final number was a 70% increase in commission over the last few years to the field, right? Like, that's fucking insane. Maybe almost double. And then she looked me straight in the eyes at the front of the room when I was talking, and she said, we're going to do it again. So if that math holds, and I don't, Vera's has got a great track record with me. I don't know how you feel about that, Jamie, but she's got a great track record with me. I have every reason to believe that that's going to run back. And so we're looking at that like, wow, from a financial standpoint, the game continues to get better. But here were some stats that really bugged me. we're seeing reps make more money, but we're seeing owners with just less headcount, right? So they're essentially making the same amount of money. Now, there are obviously outliers, but there's a lot of guys right in the middle. They're making about the same amount of money, just lower headcount, right? So our average office, I think at one point, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like we got up to 13 at the heyday. If anything, it was 11. It stayed at 11 for a very long time, but I felt like maybe it was just retail, but I feel like we got up to 13 and now we're back down to 7, which basically is, if you reverse that, that is just the percentage increase in commission, but now less headcount. And we could certainly argue for the macroeconomic climate and why potentially there's headwinds there that are creating that. But I think there's a much easier explanation that is more in line with human psychology, which is most humans want to do just enough. If I can get more out of doing less, I will. And so when presented with opportunities where I can either work the same amount and make more money, or work less and make the same money, unfortunately, most humans choose to work less and make the same money. And combine that with ERTC, combine that with PPP, and it's interesting to see there's a whole generation of owners that I think are going to get left behind, and new owners are going to step up, like new groups that don't know any of that, right? They don't have any of those stories. And there's a new generation of owners who are figuring out better, faster ways to recruit, train, and develop people. And I'm in no way alluding to remote offices, by the way. I'm officially not a fan of that for a number of reasons. If you want a cute little fucking lifestyle business, go build a drop shipping business. Our business is about training and mobilizing people, and that's very hard to do if you're not pouring into them. So these are things that I'm looking at. I'm looking at the math and I'm going, fuck, our clients want more of us in more places. We're cracking the code on some of the biggest clients in the world because we know how to mobilize and train people. And we got to double down on the skill sets that make us good at what we're doing. So questions that I'm constantly asking right now to myself, to my team, as I review where we're at and I'm taking an inventory is, what skills, mentality, and characteristics need an upgrade? Right, what skills, mentality, and characteristics need an upgrade? Those are the 3 areas. All success is predicated on those 3 things: skills, mentality, and characteristic. The character of the person. And my experience in just coaching and developing people in and out of our business, the area that we struggle the most on is character, not skills, which isn't to say skills don't matter, because they do. But we very much over-index on the skill portion and under-index on character. It's like, how is my character holding me back from getting to what I say I want? So these are fun questions for me. And a lot of my coaching goes into this. It's like, okay, you say you want these things. Well, what do you value more than what you say you want? Right? And that, to me, that's a frame hopefully everybody can use. Like, okay, well, what am I, if I say I want to be a consultant, if I say I want to be a senior national consultant, or say I want to be an organizational consultant, great. What am I valuing more? Like, what is getting in the way of that? And to me, that starts with awareness, because a lot of these conversations I have with people, and they look me in the eyes, and for the life of them, they cannot understand what is getting in the way. There isn't anything I want more. And that's just simply not true. I haven't seen that yet. It's just the things that get in the way are so baked into our psyche, or so baked into who we think we are, that we cannot separate them out. We don't see that they're getting in the way. Right? So it's like, there isn't any awareness. There is no observation. There is no witness of that can see and look and go, yeah, this is it. This is why having good coaches are useful, because they help you understand, like, hey, this is getting in your way. There are things that you value more. So I'm going through that inventory for myself. What skills, mentality, and characteristics do I need to upgrade in 2023 and beyond? And I have my own inventory of things that I realize, like, fuck, I did some things really well, but there's other things I'm like, damn it, I could have been way better in these areas. And so that's a big kind of fill in the gap for me going forward. Here's how I get better. Here's the things that I can do to up my game. And for me, it's about legacy, right? Like our business is predicated upon, we recruit people in on the belief that they have an opportunity. And I full well know some people can't fight their way out of a fucking paper bag. And no matter what you do for them, until they find the will to win, there's nothing you can do for them. However, I also understand it's on me to make sure that I am never the reason, or the business is never the reason why they're not succeeding. Right? You fully understand it's on them while working your ass off to make sure that the business is constantly getting better. And so for me, that's a big push for me. And I'm excited about things you're going to hear, and you guys probably have been hearing about, but O&O, owned and operated, us running our own businesses, residual or reoccurring revenue businesses, things that create equity and equity positions. But here's what I know and all that, and I love talking about this stuff. The problem is I am 100% certain that no matter how good the business gets, and it inevitably will continue to get better, if the individual doesn't get better, nothing's going to fucking change. Which is where I was going with this. If you look back, it's like, okay, we've seen an enormous increase in pay. Not in production, by the way. There is no office currently that's getting huge accolades that has got better production than offices 5 years ago, which is hilarious. And we'll praise the money, as we should, but production is obviously the name of the game, right? From a client standpoint. So we got to keep tabs on that, because if they start looking back and going, fuck, we're paying, 5 times more for the same amount of production that we used to, that could be a problem. But we got to get better at upgrading our internal standards and taking an inventory of where we're at and making the necessary changes. And really change in behavior comes down to 3 things: motivation, ability, and prompts in our environment, right? Motivation, ability, and prompts in our environment. And what I see consistently when I'm able to help people change their behavior, those are my levers. Right? How do we create the right motivation? And motivation is just part of the equation. It isn't the entire equation, because motivation is not sustainable. But motivation and then ability, that's the skills part, right? And I would subtext ability with clarity, which is part of ability. When somebody doesn't know what they're going to do when they go to the gym and they're not sure what workout they're going to do, they're less likely to go, because they don't have clarity, because they don't have ability to understand what workout they're going to do. So it's creating ability and clarity around the action that needs to be taken, and then prompts in the environment to make sure that's the case. So in our business, part of those prompts is accountability to our people, right? As they're coming in and they're working with us. And so anytime we get too detached, right? This is like just a, entrepreneurship 101. Don't ever get too far removed from the thing that's generating revenue for your business. And I have seen so many people fail in our business because they get too far away from the thing that's generating revenue for them in their business. They get detached from that piece. Right? And so part of that is keeping that intact. And those are prompts in your environment. And our business isn't really meant to be a lifestyle business, which, there's some downside to that, because lifestyle businesses are all the rage right now. That's what people want. And I see a lot of people trying to make our business a lifestyle business. And that's a really slippery slope for a number of reasons. So I'll pause there. Those are thoughts that are in my head right now. I can continue monologuing, but if anybody has any questions or things that they'd like to unpack, I'm happy to do that here. We got 14 minutes.
So could you just repeat that quickly? The motivation, direction, ability / clarity. And what was the third one?
Prompts in our environment. So for instance, a prompt could be as simple as living by a schedule. Right? Looking under the hood, I'm concerned how many people don't use a calendar to navigate their life. Calendars can be very useful prompts. Putting your gym bag out at your front door or in your front car of your seat is a prompt that reminds you to, oh yeah, gotta go work out. Sharing your goals with your administrator or your goals for recruiting for the day or for the week. Those are prompts. These are going to get feedback and hold the line and create accountability. So if you're trying to change behavior, there's 3 aspects of changing behavior, which is motivation, ability, and prompts. Part of ability is clarity. The reason I say this is it's so easy for us to get into these rut routines because so much of business, not just our business, by the way, business in general is highly repetitive. Right? And it's why so many people miss it, is because they fucking get bored out of their mind with the repetition, unless you are a high C. High C's, for whatever fucking reason, can just, but it's a highly repetitive thing. And the problem with that is that it's easy to get into that rut and then to stop, not look up and understand where your holes in your game are. Right? Not understand, like, you're just digging yourself farther into a pit, or thinking that things are going to change without you changing. Now, this is another thing that is just fucking laughable to me, for the amount of people I have coached over the last decade, that their entire psyche is predicated on this belief that the world is going to change, not them. And they don't even realize it, right? I need a better campaign. If I only made more money, if there was only more recruits, if it's always fucking something out there, which I'm going to talk about in my org call today. So, but we fuck ourselves with these belief systems and we miss it. Nothing is going to change in our world unless we change. And that's doing the inner work, which is why I love our business. It's why I like entrepreneurship, because I think it's a fancy word for personal development. It makes you face yourself, or not, but you're way more exposed in our business if you don't. Grant, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to ask you more on the values. So you were talking a little bit about like how the things they value can hold them back from something specific, like an organizational consultant promotion. And, I get everyone's a little different, but what would you say are some core values that maybe we should try to embody if that's what we're looking to do?
It's more, it's a great question. I'll unpack it a different way. And I've said this a lot, and I do not glorify working hard for working hard's sake. First of all, I'm not of that ilk. I'm not of that school. And there is lots of people who are. I am not. I'm also do not glorify getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning because you're supposed to be more productive. One, it's not true per se, although in some contexts it could be. But so sometimes the message, and because the message comes across that way, it gets kind of shunned, or like, yeah. But I would say this, as this is a kind of a principle of thought before I kind of unpack this further. I would not say that you need to work 120 hours a week in order to become a consultant. I think I've consistently worked 60 to 70 hours a week, but I don't know many weeks that I got up to 120 hours a week. There were some, but not consistently. Okay. So I'm not about to tell you, you have to work 120 hours a week to be a consultant. However, I would say from a heart position, you better be willing to work 120 hours a week in order to be a success, which is not the same thing. And sometimes we miss the nuance of that position, right? So sometimes we hear this, oh, you got to work 120 hours a week. And I'm like, fuck. No, but you better be willing to do that. Okay, so then it's like, well, okay, well, why aren't you willing to work 120 hours a week? And then everything comes out. Right? Then you learn what somebody's values are. Well, what gets in the way of doing that? Again, I'm not saying you have to work 120 hours a week. I am saying you better be willing to work 120 hours a week if you really want to be a success. It's a position of the heart. So it's like, well, if I'm not willing to do that, why am I not willing to do that? What is getting in the way? Does this make sense, Grant? Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm not even here to tell you, I'm not here to tell you what I think your values should be. That's between you and God, right? I don't, what your values are. My entire point is get fucking real with yourself about who you are and what you want. Right? That's the integrity. You don't have integrity if you don't understand that. And you'll see this. And I'd love, some of us are a little bit older now. 35 to 45 is the most common time period for midlife crisis, for men specifically. And it makes a lot of sense when you look at it. And part of the reason is most men spend most of their life chasing some version of the American dream and living to an ideal that was never theirs. And one of the worst, best things that could happen to them is that they accomplish the American dream early in their life. Because what ends up happening very often is you hit this like wall of, do I even fucking want this? Or this is what I was after? Wait, where's my fulfillment in this? I did everything I was supposed to, and my life didn't add up. And I'm not saying the American dream isn't worth fighting for or going for. I love it in many ways. The issue is, if the ideal you and the real you are too far apart, there's not an integrity in your action and in your decisions. And when you don't have integrity, you don't have power to change your outcome. And you'll literally like be a dog chasing its tail, wondering why my life isn't adding up, why I'm not moving the needle the way I want to. Make sense?
So one thing, so I tend to be pretty hard on myself and take things literally. So I'm curious what your opinion is on work. So would you consider, like, if I was reading a book to get better at teaching my team something off hours, would I be like, yeah, I'm working?
I would say when you have mastered the game, there is little distinction between work and play. Hopefully that answers your question.
I wanted you to get specific.
Well, okay. For you, I will. I generally speak in parable because I want people to get the concept and principle so that they don't misapply the understanding than to teach people what to think about something. But I would count anytime you are developing and growing yourself, you could use the phrase work. However, I don't like using that word because it comes with its own connotation, and it's easy to get frames like I have to do this, right? Suddenly it's I have to read, I have to develop myself. No, fuck stick. You choose to, you get to, you have the privilege of being able to. So for me, work and play I do my best to not do things and call it work for work's sake. Right. And to me, that's lifestyle design. That's getting very conscious about how I choose to show up and how I choose to live my life. And to me, that's less about discovering your passions and more about creating your passions. Now, there's I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember the Far Side comics, but I always enjoyed the Far Side comics. They're pretty old, but they're like, they're always pretty witty, and you had to figure them out. A lot of times it would just be a one-page comic, and you're left trying to figure out what's so hilarious about it. Gary Larson, I think, is his name. I guess some of you guys know that. But there's one that I always really enjoyed, and it stuck with me since I was a kid, and it was a picture of this dude in hell with a wheelbarrow, and there's the devil and his demons standing next to him, and he's got a wheelbarrow, and he's whistling while he works. Right. And he's in hell, and the devil looks at his demons and he's like, we're just not getting through to this guy. Right. And to me, that's such a perfect, it's very witty, first of all, but to me, that's it. It's like, it's how you frame what you're experiencing has a larger impact on what you're experiencing than anything else. So a lot of times, like, well, it's just not what I want to do, or that's not my personality. In some cases, that's valid, but most of the time, it's just facing the character traits in us that we don't want to change or develop and grow. As far as reading to develop your guys, I love that. I would just say focus on just-in-time information, not just-in-case information.
So, Saz, when you talk about the ideal you and the real you, right? Would you consider the current you as ideal, or the one you're chasing as real, or vice versa?
The ideal, it's a great question, Baidu. The ideal you, I'm actually in the middle of writing my first book on this very topic. Hopefully, my goal is to have it out by my birthday of this year. But
the reason I'm asking you that question is because this morning in my general meeting, I was talking to people about the fact that the present you is virtual and the real one is the one that you're chasing in the future. So when you project yourself in the future, whoever you project yourself to be in the future is the real you, and this one is virtual. So what's your concept on that?
I think if you're trying to teach a lesson about lifestyle design and creating your own world, that could be a useful frame. I would offer the ideal you is the one that you present to the world. The real you is the real you, right? It's the easiest way to describe this, I guess, in our business. It's like hiring a guy who says all the right things. He looks the part, he plays the part, he dresses the part, looks like he's a stud, right? You get him into your business, you're excited about him, he does well for a few weeks, and then as he gets more comfortable and he becomes more familiar, you start to see an entirely different side to the dude. Not as disciplined, not as professional, not as serious about his business. And you're like, well, what the fuck? But the gap is the ideal versus the real. The ideal you shows up generally because you either, it's someone you aspire to be, that could be it, or it's somebody you think other people need you to be. Right? And so it's not who you are. And it's okay if there's a little bit of a gap between the ideal you and the real you, but if that gap gets too big, you lack integrity. And the lack of integrity here isn't an indictment on character, it's one of power. It's a question of power. If you were not in alignment with who you are ineffective in bringing real change to your life. Like when you listen to people speak who have integrity, more than the words, you hear what they're saying. There's an energy, you feel what they're saying because there is an alignment with what they are saying, right? An easy way to explain this, if this is confusing, is I could have two people both deliver the exact same content on how to become 100 millionaire, right? Or a decamillionaire. And then afterwards, I could ask you all, hey, who did you like more? Who do you think was a more impactful speaker? And there was a really fucking good chance most of you would vote for the decamillionaire, the one that is a decamillionaire. And I expose one of them, let's say speaker A makes $50,000 a year and never has made more than that. He just was taught the content, was sharing it. Speaker B actually did it. Well, you wouldn't need anybody to tell you that. You would literally feel the difference. Right? And there's an old saying that I've always really enjoyed. I believe it's T.S. Eliot who gets credit for saying it, but a man with an experience is never at the mercy of a man with a theory.
So hang on. So you're saying the guy who's made $10 million is more relevant than the one who is talking about making 100 million?
Yeah, the guy who actually made $10 million. So if as a speaker in context, I tell you, hey, I want you guys to grade these speakers, speaker A, speaker B. You don't know anything about their backgrounds at all. You just know you're grading two different speakers. What you don't know is speaker B has already made $10 million. Speaker A has never made more than $50,000 in his life. Okay. And then I ask you to grade which one resonated with you more and which one did you feel was a better speaker. And there's a really fucking good chance, for reasons that you don't even quite understand, speaker B is going to resonate with you more. And the reason is you'll literally be able to feel the integrity in their words. They did it. They're not speaking from theory.
I think it's because they use the word I a lot.
No, it's because there's an integrity. It's not something they know here. It's something they know here. A man with a theory, a man with an experience is never at the mercy of a man with a theory. A man with an experience is never at the mercy of a man with a theory. That's the problem with academia. It's a running joke in academia, those who can't teach.
Yeah, theoretical professor versus the guy who teaches as a tax write-off for his business.
Correct.
Yeah.
Hey, Sabs, real quick, can you unpack, I know we're a little short on time, but can you unpack, you said something about some people trying to turn this into a lifestyle business. Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. They're trying to do as little as possible to get maximum gain. Right. So they're trying to take a business that requires time, effort, and energy in the development of people and turn it into a business where they put as little time as possible in and expect to get ahead. And normally, especially in this business, when I see it, somebody else is paying the price for that behavior. And it's either, depending on their situation, it could be their promoting owner, it could be somebody else in the org, or it could be their people. And usually it's some combination of all of them. And so sometimes the delta is met by someone else. So they may actually deceive themselves into thinking they're doing more and putting more effort than they actually are in because somebody else is covering their fucking ass, right? Which creates its whole set of problems. But ultimately they're trying to put in as little effort as possible to get as much yield. And it's an incredibly selfish position. which is why I have a strong distaste for it. But I'm seeing it more and more, which I get, because that's kind of the sexy thing everybody wants right now. Cute little lifestyle business. I put 20 hours in a week. Tim Ferriss sends the word, which he doesn't, by the way, but people think he does. That shit was funny, but I guess it's kind of an inside joke unless you know what I'm referencing.
Yeah, the guy that writes the 4-hour work week was putting in 100-hour work weeks leading up to that.
And he talks about that. He's like, I only used the title because it did really well on Google AdWords. Like it hit really well. But he's like, I was not he goes, looking back, my big issue with it is that I got asked to speak all the time about, hey, you really think it only takes 4 hours a week? And he's like, no, no, it does not. It just did really well. Which is, there's 3 phases to momentum, right? We know this. There's creating momentum, there's maintaining momentum, and there's advancing momentum. And the creating momentum phase, it sucks because, and this is why most people never get through it. In the creating momentum phase, you are working harder and putting in more effort than what you're getting back, right? Input, output don't match. And that's where a lot of people quit, because it's like you feel grossly overworked and underpaid relative to your effort. And then if you continue to grow and you develop your skills, mentality, and character, you'll get to maintaining momentum. And maintaining momentum, you start to see input, output kind of catch up, where now that you start to see some reward. And unfortunately, the employee mentality, for whatever reason, that's a cue to take their foot off the pedal. They're like, oh, fuck, now I can slow down, or I've arrived. Like, no, dude, you're just catching up finally. You're finally hitting your stride. Now you have the ability to launch your business so that you never look back. Unfortunately, because of values, most people get to that phase. They think they're further along than they are. They start making decisions, pulling money out of their business, going in over their head on overhead, and then they're out of their business. I'm now at a point where I'm seeing rookie fucking owners taking 3-week vacations and thinking they deserve it. I'm like laughing, crying, like, what fucking world? What have we done? How did we make things so easy that people think that that's a real thing? Right? And so then you fuck your business. Right? So now you go from maintaining momentum back down to creating momentum. And creating momentum sucks so bad, very few people can get back through that. Gareth, I think you're an incredible example of how to do that. For as long as I've been in the business with you, I have seen you go from like 2 people to fucking 25 people more than enough times to know you are a master at creating momentum. And I think we can all learn.
I don't know if that's a compliment or like
No, it is. It's meant to be a compliment. Not a lot of people have that kind of endurance and the ability to do that. I mean that genuinely. And if I was in the creating momentum phase, I'd go to you and go, how the fuck have you done this? Because I think you've done it more than I think anybody else I know in the business personally. Juanice isn't too far behind you, but you guys have, that there's something to say for that. But what you want to do is double down when you get in the advancing momentum phase or maintaining the momentum phase and get into advancing momentum. Advancing momentum, the business takes on a life of its own. And then it's like you are grossly overpaid and underworked. And that's the phase you want to get into. But people get content along the way. They think they're better off than they really are along the way. And then they fucking collapse like a flan in the cupboard. And most people only have a few of those in them before they're exhausted. And I get it. This sounds so sadistic, and I don't mean it in a sadistic way, but there's a certain joy I get in lasting. And I've only been in this business 12 years, but the amount of people I've seen come and go, I'm like, yeah, because life's hard. Not a lot of people can fucking endure, and there's something to that. So I always give Juanice tons of props if he's on here. I think he is. Because he's fucking been doing this shit for 20-something years. There's something to be said for being able to last. Most people can't, which is why they don't have the life they say they fucking want, which goes back to what do they value most? Anyway, those are my thoughts, and I'm way over so I better jump over to my org call.
Well, Sabs, I love the interaction, love the messaging. Thank you so much, everybody.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you, brother.